Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Steel Roses Podcast. This podcast was created for women by women. I want to say happy holidays at this point to everybody. Is it happy holidays?
Full disclosure, we try to record in advance. So we believe it will be the week right after Thanksgiving. So yes, happy holidays, everyone.
So in the holiday spirit, Melissa and I were talking about just family dynamics and family stuff. And, holidays are a super fun time, but I think it's also a super stressful time for a lot of people.
Absolutely. Yes.
For various reasons, right? Because you're
I'm raising
now...
my hand. No one can see it, but I'm raising my hand.
Yeah, it can be a stressful time. And Melissa and I both have the joy of being divorced kids, and thus adding to the layer of stress that happens during the holidays.
It's the gift that keeps on giving. Like just
keeps
when
on
you
giving.
think it's done, you have your own kids, and then it complicates things.
And then
once more,
it gets even more complicated. So we feel for any of you even dealing with any kind of stress during the holidays, which it is always a little stressful. But for those of you that also are divorced kids and have to do the shuffle, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, we feel for you much, much more. So one thing I do want to say about the holidays, one of my favorite things about the holidays, and this makes me think of Grandma Rose, who this podcast was founded around. Mm-hmm. My favorite thing is cooking. I love picking my dishes out and figuring out what the meal plan is going to be or the menu. My favorite part, hands down.
Absolutely. And can I just say, growing up, Thanksgiving, this is going to sound weird, but Thanksgiving was my favorite holiday, always. And
really?
One, it's no secret that in our family we like to eat. So we're Italian Americans. So, but one, we all like to eat. Two, it was never about the gifts. And again, that's I'm an old soul. So it was never about the gifts or that kind of stuff. Literally it was everybody getting together. No one was in a rush. My mom would host most of the time. And we would just all hang out beforehand, hang out after. You guys would usually sleep over, and so it was always my favorite holiday. So I hope to impart that passing down into generations, because Thanksgiving is always my favorite. I love, and now that I'm cooking and being a part of it, I'm ooh, what am I going to make this year? I want to try this recipe, or things like that.
It's funny because last year I did I made ratatouille because we became vegetarians. So we were
I just thought you said rabbit.
No.
And then I just realized you said Ratatouille, which is my favorite Disney movie, by the way.
Yeah, well, so ours too. So I made ratatouille last year, and it was so funny because we were trying to figure out a vegetarian dish because my husband's family is Ecuadorian, so it's a lot of traditional Latin American dishes, and it's a lot of meat based. And which is devastating for my husband, but I digress. So I was I'm going to make ratatouille, and I kind of thought oh, I'll make this, and we're probably the only ones eating it. No, the whole that platter got wiped out. Everybody was what is this? What did you do here?
Well, I have to admit, you sent a picture of that, and I was I want to come over.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty
because
good.
Everything you're making is normally just happens to be gluten free, and I'm I could come over and eat that.
The funny part about that is when Melissa first had to go gluten free, I couldn't quite wrap my head around it, and I was on the total opposite. And then when Melissa gave up dairy, I was oh my God, I could never. And now I'm dairy free. I prefer gluten free products over regular products.
Well, it's really funny because so many people that would be what the F, what are you talking about? Now are either doing it maybe not by choice, but or by choice. And it's just funny because remember when I used to come up and help with kids or whatever, and you would have the little gluten free frozen meals, right?
But now my whole house
But
is
now your whole house
gluten-free
is just
and meat-free and dairy-free.
I'm like, I
I
can come over
actually,
whenever.
it's funny because like every time you come up here, I do. All right, well, let me tell you this actually. This is kind of cute. I guess it's like a big sistery kind of thing. But every time you come up this way and you're like, oh, we might stop by, I always kind of look to see like, do I have gluten-free snacks? Like, what do I have here in case I have to throw something together real quick? And I always have stuff now in the house
Yeah,
that's
you're
like,
oh, it's just
Melissa could certainly come here to hang out and eat, and it's like I always have stuff. So, but yeah, like the cooking part is the biggest deal to me. I love pulling things together. I've said it on other episodes that to me, cooking is an expression of love.
Yeah.
And I put all of that into the food, and I think that's why it tastes so good, because there have been instances where I've also said this before. I learned all my cooking techniques from Chris's parents, and there were many, many times where like I would try to replicate a dish, and I would follow it to a T from my mother-in-law, and then my husband would eat it and be like, you know, and then she would make the exact same dish exactly the same way, and he'd be like, oh, it's so good, and I'm like, wait, I don't understand. But it's because I truly, truly believe that there's something in it that goes into it that's like the love of the person or the person's touch.
Absolutely. Because, and the same thing happened. So I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit, but like on our family side, our grandma Rose, her eggplant recipe is like famous in the family. And it's the one recipe that I've been able to perfect that it actually tastes like grandma's. But I think the reason is because actually your brother's always like, what the heck? Like, why can't I, like, I'm doing everything you're telling me. But I swear it's because grandma and
she taught you,
cooked it together multiple times. And like, I literally have these very distinct memories of her teaching me how to do it together in the kitchen for like because it's a whole day process.
That is so sweet.
And I swear that's why, because like when I cook it now, I have those memories with me.
And it goes into the food.
And it's a whole day thing. So I just block out the whole day and I take my time. And like, as I'm going through it, I just think of, so I really think that is a real thing.
It is. It's legit. And it's legit. And honestly, like that memory that you talked about just now, I have like actively made sure that like, as I do things, while it drives me insane sometimes, but, like my kids help me. Like, they're all learning to cook alongside mommy, because I'm like, this to me is the legacy. Like, and it sounds so corny and old school. Right? And like, honestly, like, I feel like
thought in our 20s when we would be having conversations like this,
but this
let alone
like
on a podcast. Like,
there's my husband. Oh, well, no, definitely not on a podcast. There's no way I would.
There wasn't. Was there no podcast?
I don't think there was podcasts when we were in our 20s. Oh my God, we're so old.
We're so old.
Like, I remember all the apps that all social media apps that are relevant today. I remember when they were launched and I was like, oh, Snapchat looks evil.
What?
No, it's not. Everybody uses it. It's so funny.
Remember, we're like, what the heck is Tinder? Like,
oh my God.
Actually, Tinder wasn't around. What was it back then? It was the ones you had to pay for.
eHarmony.
Like, remember? Yeah. eHarmony. Yes.
Oh my God, we are going down a path of dating.
Yeah. Anyway, we digress. Let's go. Bring it back.
Anyway, holidays. So again, cooking. Melissa and I both on board.
Absolutely.
We are like, if we ever paired up and did like a host.
Oh my God, can you imagine?
Bananas. One other food plug before we like move into actual holiday stuff. You know who looked like, and I didn't eat it because obviously I am not eating meat, but like Aunt Michelle's meatballs look incredibly close to what I remember Grandma's meatballs looking like.
Interesting.
Yeah, when we were up there.
I'm pretty sure that's her mother's recipe.
They look fabulous. I almost broke my vegetarian rule when I saw them, and I was like, I love a good meatball.
The meatballs that I really love, which our grandmother also did, was like the day old bread, like soaked in like, and I was like, that is dairy and gluten, and I will die.
Let's just poison ourselves.
But like, I miss those meatballs that they would slow cook for like literally 24 hours. Like,
I used to do that. That
Do you
when
remember?
when my husband and I first started dating, that was like I used to put a big pot of gravy on, and I would cook all the meat in the gravy, and I
Right?
would
Like,
oh
now we still make gravy, but we do turkey meatballs here.
we do plant-based meatballs.
If our grandmother could see us now,
Grandma would be like, "What
what the
is
hell are
this
you
garbage?"
doing? I've come to like turkey meatballs a lot, though. In
Yeah,
our household, by the way, listeners, we are mostly we do chicken, we do poultry. So we do chicken and fish. We do chicken, turkey, and fish in our house primarily.
we just do fish and shrimp, which actually helps out during the holidays because shrimp is like a seafood.
Yeah,
I
thank
like doing the
God. Thank God.
seafoods
Like
situation. Yeah, we can do seafood a lot. But we went way in for food, and we must be hungry.
So let's bring it back around to what we actually wanted to talk to our listeners about.
Besides me feeling sad that I don't eat like meatballs anymore. So beyond the cooking, there is, obviously a lot more to it for holidays, because when you're just you and it's just your individual self that you are shuttling about, you only have to worry about you and your family, right? Like, so your immediate family or what your own family traditions are. Now, once you're you plus one, well, then it's like, oh, well, we have 2 stops to make here. And it's like my family, your family. However, if both of you or one of you is part of a divorce family, you're adding a layer of complication in. Now, I will say this, and I remember talking to my stepkids about this because they used to get stressed out during the holidays too. And I would explain to them, I'm like, yeah, it sucks. Like, I get it. I'm a divorced kid too. And I remember when I would talk to them about it when they were real little, and they were like, what do you do? Like, how do you handle it? Like, when does it get better? And I was like, I'm really sorry to say this to you. Because I was like 27 when I was talking to them about this. They were little guys. They were little. I think my stepson was like 7. My stepdaughter was like 12. Yeah, they were little guys when I met them. And they were like, well, what do you do? Like, when does it get better? Like, because, they used to have both their parents being like wanting them to be with them. And I was like, it honest to God doesn't get better. It actually gets a little worse, because when you're older, I don't know if you have this problem, but like my parents are not shy about making me feel bad. They don't hold back.
That's a real thing.
They don't hold back. And it doesn't have to be like a blatant oppressive. So this is like a divorce kid complication during the holidays. It's not a blatant oppressive, like you're horrible, you need to be with me. It's more of a, well, if you can stop by. And I'm like,
we'd really love to see you.
We'd love to see you and the kids. And I'm like, I would really just want to go into a hole because I don't want to tell you. I will say this. I would like Melissa to throw some highlights out there about her holiday travels, because
Jenny
mine are complex, but hers are like cray. Like,
Jenny likes to make fun of me because we've been getting better. And it's actually a process, which sounds crazy. But so we had the double special gift of Matthew and I, my husband and I, both being divorced kids. And those Hallmark families where everybody gets along and everyone can come together and it doesn't matter the family. That is not us. Especially, full disclosure, Matt's, again, it's just so funny to me because Jenny and I, we have an uncle, an aunt, and like our cousins that are extremely close, like almost like a Hallmark.
Oh yeah, no, they have a beautiful family. Beautiful family.
And like I say this without any sort of like slight, like literally they are like, that's goals for like what I want my nuclear family
I want my kids to be
like.
Right? I'm not even kidding.
Like,
I reference, all right, I'm actually going to throw their names out. I reference Uncle David and Aunt Michelle quite a bit because
all the time.
they have such a strong family bond. And I see it. They genuinely like each other. They're genuinely close. They genuinely get together and do activities together.
Constantly.
And I don't think they realize, like, and I might tell them one day, because I don't think they realize the impact that has had on me. Like, I look at that unit as like you said, like they have cultivated this beautiful family. And I'm like, I'm so, like, even when I see it in real time, it's not like a jealousy thing. It's more of a, this is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love seeing it.
And this is what I want my family to look like
Yeah. This is what my little
25
family that
years
I'm
later,
working on.
you know?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what I want my kids to be like.
And again, I say, and we both say that without jealousy. We've gotten to the point where, but it's like, we do have a family in that is like that. And yeah, full disclosure, our families are not like that.
We're not like that. No.
And especially my in-laws, like there's just unfortunate family dynamics, and Matt is one of three, and the other two siblings, they're very different, and there's just been things over time that they don't really are in contact. So it's just, yeah, so it's a very complicated
it
just
happens.
in his family. And then you take on my side, and you're both divorced kids. So now we have 4 sets of grandparents that want to see us for the holidays. And then on the cherry on the top is that we now live in Florida, and both our families, besides my mother, live in New Jersey. So when we spend $1,000 at Christmas usually to fly up, minimally 1,000.
Yep.
And then we spend most of our PTO for 2 weeks so that we can fit in. But it's so funny to me because it's literally like that movie 4 Christmases. We have 4 Christmases.
Yeah.
So we have to go do the rounds. And by the time we're done, like Jenny knows this, by the time we're done, I want to cry from exhaustion.
Let's take a quick break.
Are you interested in podcasting but not sure where to start? My name is Jenny Benitez, and I'm here to help guide you through your podcast launch and maintenance. Check out the link in the episode description for Podcasting Unboxed, your comprehensive startup guide. I am very excited to work with you. Yeah, I don't even try to get in there into that mix. Like,
you're like, Christmas? No.
I live fairly close to where Matt's family lives. Like, I'm pretty central location, but I'm gonna be honest, I don't even put myself out there during the holidays. I'm like, Melissa, should you feel like you want to stop by, cool, but I am not even gonna request a visit. Like, I'm like, I don't even, do your thing, girl, because the amount of travel that she does, it blows my freaking mind. Because in my scenario, and I think, like, you know what, also I have to commend you a little bit for this, and not a little bit, a lot bit. I have to commend you for this because you're actively trying to make sure that you see everybody, and you actively really try hard to make it work. On my end of the stick,
you're like, I don't.
I honestly, you know what? I truly don't, because I'm like, you know what? My kids are the priority, my stepkids, my grandchildren, and my little guys. And this is my family unit now. And what happened between my family and my parents separated, my parents divorcing, and, you know, my siblings and I not having like great relationships or whatever, like that's my problem. I don't want my kids having to deal with that. Like, these guys,
we're gonna not pass down.
I'm not passing
generational trauma to the next.
No, I'm not passing that trauma onto them. I want them to remember their holidays as warm home, happy memories, good food, mom getting on the floor and playing with us, and, you know, doing things like
instead of driving
cookies. No,
I'm not doing that. 3 hours in the day of the actual. Well, and you know what? That is something that Matt and I have had conversations about recently. We are a family of 3, well, plus our dogs, but we are a family of 3. And we literally said, like, that's something that we talk about because, you know, we always go back and forth of whether we would want a second, but I could not do it. I could not make those rounds with another child. It just physically,
it would be
insanity.
That's also,
it's even insanity now. Like Mia's still young enough, and she loves, like, she is a little mini me, and she loves seeing her grandparents. She loves seeing her cousins.
She's so cute.
Like, she FaceTimes all the time, like with the cousins in our family, like your kids, and she literally asks about them and wants to go see them. So right now it's not a detrimental thing to her. Like she's on board with it and she wants to go see people and she wants to go do things. She's like a very active toddler, but I'm like, there's going to come a point where she might not want to do that.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go force her. And I always, the thing I do get jealous about is sometimes I'll see like my friends' families that are nuclear families. And even then the grandparents or whatever, like they'll have one day, maybe it's like Christmas Eve or the day after Christmas, and her parents and the husband's parents, they'll come to them to their house and together, and like they'll all just have a day together. And I was like, that legitimately will never happen for my kids.
For a lot of reasons.
All four sets of grandparents, come on over. One, no one comes to me. Two, besides, I will say, and that's no shade. It's just that everyone got used to us making the rounds.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
And I set up that expectation, sort of.
Yeah,
so it's
that's
really
true.
my own fault. But we are slowly trying to correct this and be like, hey, like we fly up, we're exhausted. Like, can you guys come to us, wherever we're centrally located? And but it's like, it's funny. The holidays can be bringing us full circle. It's like, yeah, the holidays can be a little bit stressful. And like when you add these added dynamics of, well, are you a divorced kid? Are your partners a divorced kid? Like, what's the situation? It can get really complicated and people's feelings get hurt.
Yeah,
so
people's feelings get really hurt.
I don't know if you deal with that, cousin, but like there'll be people like, well, we're not going to see you the day of. And I literally want, and again, they're just thinking, we just want to see you. We love Mia. We want to, spend time with you. And it's like, it's one day and we have 4 families.
You have 8.
Yeah. Like it's just, and literally sometimes my husband will say to me, he's like, do we want to go up and deal with the circus? Because it does. It's
a circus.
It becomes a circus.
It's when
and we love our family. I have to stress.
Oh, like, no, of course you do. Yeah.
And Matt's more introverted, but especially me. Like I want to go. Like living in Florida has been so hard at times for me because I want to go to all the things. Like all our, there's sort of kind of 2 subsets of cousins, and like the younger cousins, they're all getting married now. The engagement parties, like we're flying up a lot, and it's great. And we want to be a part of it, but it's like all these entanglements. It just gets really complicated.
One thing I will say, because when Chris and I first started dating, his family was very, and his situation is very complex because I have 2 stepkids and it was from 2 prior relationships for him. So
neither of us have easy.
Yeah, he's always had to do like this. He always had to do this really wild juggle for stuff like birthdays, holidays was always like super stressful. And what I started doing, he always gives me accolades for this, for like helping to shift his perspective a little bit, because he would be going crazy to make something happen on the day of someone's birthday. And I was always like, oh, it's a Wednesday, man. Like, why don't you just celebrate it on Saturday? Like, what are we doing here? It's taken 14 years, but he has slowly shifted his mindset to be like, yeah, it's a day that you want to acknowledge, but you don't have to acknowledge it on that day. So what we've started doing, like for my side of the family, we don't do it on the day of the holiday. We used to try, and it was always a big fight, like who's going where, and why don't you guys come up this way and this. And now it's like I'm 2 hours away from some people. Actually,
I'm one of 3. So all three siblings, they all have individual families now. Like everybody has kids and stuff, and are married,
and so what we've started doing, because it was getting like really frustrating, and people's feelings are getting hurt and everything. And I was like, why don't we just not celebrate on the day of the holiday, guys? Like, let's just take a reprieve. Like, I have off. Like, I'm blessed enough that I have off from Christmas to New Year's. There's a whole week that I'm
Right.
off.
If we could pick a day.
We can literally pick any day this week. And majority of the companies do that now. Like there's a lot of organizations that close that week. And I'm like, guys, I can come and hang out during that week. Like that's when we do it. Even for Thanksgiving, like I've said to my family, and I've even said to Chris, like if we can't get the stepkids together, why don't we just pick another weekend and we'll do our own dinner and have everyone come? You kind of have to like think outside the box a little bit because the holidays are the holidays, but like, okay, society set those holidays in motion. Like we can pick our own dates and make our own traditions.
And make our own, and I love that, making your own tradition. And that's what Matt and I have been talking about, because I think it's such an important point that it doesn't have to look, well, and it's not going to look like.
It will never look like that.
Like
never.
Certain images. And it might not even look like what we grew up with. But when you create your own traditions, they can be wonderful in of itself. And it can completely de-stress the situation. So you're not running around like I used to do with your head cut off. And be kind to yourself. Like I put so much pressure on myself to make things, that I would cry by the end of the week because of stress. And I'm like, I literally, after Mia was born, COVID saved us for like
That's
2 years.
That's true. You
the
had to
silver lining of COVID, like we were able to have like focus on our family. And ever since then, I'm like, okay, listen, like we could still go up north. Like we could still, family is still a priority for us, but we have to prioritize our daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And and remember that we're creating a nuclear family ourselves. Yeah. It's not us about being a part of other people's,
You have to start making your own path, your own traditions.
And it doesn't mean you can't spend time with people and you can't go see people, but it doesn't have to be this completely stressful thing that takes over the entire holiday.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And that's why, like, so we changed, like, so traditionally in my husband's family, Christmas Eve, I was like blown away by this. Christmas Eve, they traditionally, everyone stayed up until midnight. And then at midnight, everyone opened gifts.
I remember that. I legit remember.
I was like, remember the first time I went, and I was like, what is happening right now? Like, I'm tired. Like, can we and I remember like once we had kids, I think we went to one where they still kept that tradition. And I was like furious because I was so tired and so overwhelmed. The kids were all out of sorts. And I was like, we can't do this again. So we like the next year had to move up the timeline. We're like, we're leaving. So you guys do what you want, but we're out of here. So there had been certain things. And now we're we're an hour and a half away from my husband's family. So there's no way we're staying late, just anything. And the family,
we're not getting home at 2:00 in the morning.
Not happening. So, we started our own little tradition. What we do for Christmas, we drive, and Thanksgiving, we're going to do the same thing for Thanksgiving. We drive up to my in-laws, because they're also, they're getting older. So we go up there to help cook, and we go up early. We spend majority of the day up there. We cook all the food up there. Like for the most part, we cook a lot of the food up north. We do everything up there. So it's more spending the time together than anything else. Yeah. So we make that a priority. We get up there, we invade their home. We take over I take over one kitchen. My mother-in-law's in another kitchen because Lord knows we can't be cooking at the same time together. That's a whole other, I'm going to talk about that in a second. It's a whole other thing. But we make a day of it, and then we leave at 4 or 5 o'clock, and we make it home in time for it to be about 7 o'clock. We can get the kids showered, and then we can do a movie night, and we can all do something nice and whatever together. So you pivot is what it is. You have to make it work for your family. And this is the path that we figured out. And this is what works for us.
And to our listeners out there, just coming full circle, that's kind of the message that we wanted to bring home, was just from our life experiences and just, sharing these funny anecdotes. But it's in reality, it's hey, sometimes you have to break the traditions and create new ones that look a little bit different. But in the end, your family is going to be much happier. You're going to be much more happier, and you can actually be present in the moment. What I was doing before, I literally don't have distinct memories because I was
you're not
one, so
enjoying it.
exhausted, and two, it was like, okay, we have 2 hours that we could spend here, and then we have to run, and then we got to go to the next house and spend 2 hours there, and then we have to drive 2 hours to get back to the house that we're staying at. And it's like, I literally don't have any distinct memories of that because I just remember running.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is the point?
You're not present in the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And literally the people that we were spending time with were, it's like, well, we're only seeing you for an hour and a half. And it's like, you're not spending
quality time.
Yeah. So I think that's great. The new tradition that you have created.
This episode is airing after Thanksgiving, but before Christmas. So if Thanksgiving was really stressful, take a minute and really think about the upcoming holiday. Christmas is about to come and New Year's is about to come. How can you create your own tradition? Talk to the people that you're spending time with. And if it is super stressful and you're like having fights, and you don't want to be fighting with your partner either about like where you're going and who you're spending time with. So it's like, you don't want to be fighting with anybody during the holidays. You want to enjoy the holidays. Like, what can you do that's a little bit different? Yeah, it might feel a little weird for people at first, and some people might not like it, but people do eventually get on board. Like, I've had to coach my parents through this too, to be like, look, we got to just figure out a better way for ourselves. We're never going to have that traditional, like, what we want. My mom used to really guilt the hell out of me, and she'd be like, well, I'm cooking a whole Thanksgiving meal, so whoever shows up, and I'd be like, holy shit. So like, you just have to find your own path and you got to stick with it. And like, that's really like the key takeaway here is that create your own tradition. Don't try to fit yourself into a mold. You're not going to fit. You cannot, we can't all be in the same mold. It's impossible. Don't feel bad that your holiday doesn't look like the friggin' Rockefeller or whatever Christmas cards. Like, that's okay. Yeah. Your holiday and your setup is your unique situation.
And once you do that, and if you really embrace it, not that I'm an expert, but it can look like something more beautiful than you can even imagine. So now I've really tried to take the perspective and change it and say, okay, yeah, so our nuclear family definitely doesn't look anything like Uncle David and Aunt Michelle and their children. And now that they're starting to get married and have like, it's never going to look like that. No. But my kid gets to have 4 sets of grandparents that love the hell out of her. Yep. And you know what I mean? And you get to have a blended family where you know what I mean? Where your children has siblings that are the best big siblings that can give them life experiences.
Oh, forget about it.
And now, your stepdaughter has her, you know what I mean? So yeah, maybe it doesn't look like what you thought or what you wanted when we were growing up, but it could be something so much more.
Oh no, it's wonderful. And I've always wanted like a big family. Like when my husband and I first started dating, I was like, oh, I want 5 kids. I have 5 kids and I have 2 grandchildren. And when everyone comes to the house, it's total madness. However, I love it. I lean in hard. You should see the spread that I put out. I do a whole appetizer spread. Like now my stepkids, everyone's used to me. And I do like this whole spread of upfront food. Like I love it. I love having everything. My little youngest grandson comes over and he just puts his little hand that he wants more. He goes, Ma? And I'm like, okay, hold on. I love it. I love those memories that we're all creating. Yeah. So find your own path. Don't feel like you need to fit into anybody's particular mold. Like, what do you want to do? What is going to make you happy? Yeah. Because at the end of the day, if you're doing like what Melissa just said, like if you're going crazy trying to fit into all these particular demands from other people, you're not going to enjoy yourself and you're not really going to remember it. You're going to remember it being like, oh, this sucks. Holidays suck. Like, nobody wants that.
No one wants that. Yes. So in conclusion, holidays can be stressful. Dynamics look weird sometimes, and maybe they're not ideal. But as you go through, you start figuring out like, hey, what works for our family? And that has to be the priority. And once you do that, you start creating these traditions that can be so much more fulfilling,
Absolutely. I think that was a really nice,
and it's like, damn, just like less stress. Like, it's wonderful.
That's the goal. Yeah. I would love to like almost put that challenge out there to our listeners. If you like do happen to have a super stressful holiday season and traditionally you're like, oh my God, like I don't want to deal with this, I would love to hear how you pivot. I would love to hear, think outside the box. What could you
Strategies.
do?
Yeah, like
What's the strategy here? Think outside the box, people. I want to hear from you. Melissa wants to hear from you. You can always reach us through our social channel on Instagram. You can reach us through our website. We are launching, or TikTok is launched, but we're working on the content there. So that's, forthcoming, but you can find us on TikTok too. So just, reach out to us. We want to hear from you. Like, how did you handle your holidays? What did you do to manage like the family dynamics? And yeah. We would love to hear it.
We want to hear it. And I just want to end with this. Sometimes taking a year off isn't the worst thing. I will say that before Mia was born, Matt and I were like, screw it. This year, we're not doing anything. We went to Key West, him and I.
I can't remember that.
Do you remember that? And like, I have to tell you, it's one of the best memories I have as like a core couple. Like, it was just fantastic. And it like, we haven't done it since, but we legit, like, we're like, you know what? We're going to take this one holiday season and we'll go up for Thanksgiving, but Christmas, we are going to the Keys. And we did, and it was amazing. So you know what? Give yourself that kindness if you want to take a year off and spend a year thinking about the dynamics and how to create. Just take a year off. It's not going to be the end of the world. So.
No, and it might open up a whole new realm of like, what? Maybe we can do it this way, and then we just take the stress off of that particular day, and then we see everybody when we get back.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. Thank you all for listening. We hope everyone is really having a great holiday season, and take care, and we'll talk to you all soon.
See you next time.